I think this game solidified as, you lose Caleb Johnson last year. You don't know where that NFL piece is going to come from, that explosive part of the offense. Who is going to be that game breaker on offense where we can compete against higher level defenses? We have someone consistent against lower level defenses. I think Mark Gronowski took that role in this game.
Welcome back to the ANF Podcast. Today we're going to do a breakdown on Iowa versus Rutgers, then move into a preview of Iowa versus Indiana. Very difficult to walk away from a win at Rutgers and feel positive about the program. But as we're going to break into this, there are a lot of positives to take away. Obviously, some concerns as well. But at the top, I think what we just break into is a couple of our top plays. And I think we'll give us a lens into what we did well on the offensive side of the ball. And then we'll move into more of a defensive preview. At the top, you have likely the biggest pass play in Iowa football last 5 years. I think Iowa versus Penn State is the last time you had a marquee deep shot late in the game that flipped the script. The scenario is you're in 2nd and 6 at the 45. Looking back at this when I was reviewing the tape back, I really would have poo-pooed this play if it didn't hit. You're thinking about the concepts. You're 7.5 minutes left. You're down by 4. In an ideal scenario, you drive the field and you kill 5 minutes off the clock and you score a touchdown. You give the ball back to Rutgers with limited timeouts in the full length of field to go get a field goal. In this scenario, since you're in 2nd and 6, if this goes incomplete, you're likely going to maybe even be setting up a punt the next play. But what the look was what looks like a cover 3 match scenario where you really Rutgers hit us on a similar play in the first half. You're going to try and isolate the slot defender with a seam fade. It seems like Rutgers was misaligned. I think you had more players committed to the short side with less defenders. I think that's why Gronowski went to the seam in this case, because it didn't really make sense, as I mentioned from the top, to attack downfield at this very moment. I think it was just a misalignment he noticed, and he took advantage of it. You mix in Dayton Howard, his first catch of the year. We've been calling for him to get more touches. He's a guy that can offer a different aspect of the game, being a taller receiver. But the catch he made was, absolutely incredible. He catches the point of the ball and is able to tuck it, as he catches it. Very difficult to do. And it was just one of those moments where you were really down on where we were at. It seemed like Rutgers was going to pull this game out, even if you were able to execute again. Their offense was really moving the ball well. Yeah. And for it to flip in that moment, I was up for another 3 hours after the game, just living off that high.
Yeah, just an unsung player too. First catch of the year, and everyone's mindset going into that play. You're feeling off of how many one-score losses in the last few years where we have essentially no 2-minute game, no ability to close out fourth quarter games. And it's essentially like a sense of relief, but also the sense of that is a dimension that we have this year. And we saw it with the Phillips deep shot as well. He put a great fade shot on the first 3rd and 10 on his helmet. And it's what this offense has been missing, the ability to convert downfield with a confident quarterback that can throw that pass. And it saves the season. It puts the offense in a different point of view the rest of the year. And it's just a massive play for the rest of for the game and for Iowa's program. Truly, you were facing relegation, losing to Rutgers, and now you're going into a primetime game against Indiana, and that's all set up by that one play. I think this game solidified as, you lose Caleb Johnson last year. You don't know where that NFL piece is going to come from, that explosive part of the offense. Who is going to be that game breaker on offense where we can compete against higher level defenses? We have someone consistent against lower level defenses. And I think Mark Gronowski took that role in this game. Obviously, in the second half against Iowa State, the off-schedule plays he made, the short QB runs he had, it seemed like he was the best player on the offense in terms of us making us go. I think he solidified that this game against Rutgers. The fact that he ran for 3 touchdowns, but just his legs and every component of this game and how it's going to play out to the rest of the season, he clearly is the guy that's going to be what makes us go. And it's played out through the QB read game, the QB power game we've seen, but 2 plays in succession that show it off the most are we're down 21-14. It's a must-have drive. The first play of the drive is a boot pass, or second play of the game is a boot pass that Gronowski gets the edge. The backside DN does not stay home, and Gronowski can scramble and run for it. Instantly, that puts their backside defender on notice. And that's something that hasn't been privy to Iowa's offense over since Beathard was gone. You didn't have a boot game that functioned the way it should, where backside defenders feel a lot of pressure. The next play, we run ISO. It's outside zone to the right to Patterson. The backside D end stops, essentially. It holds his ground, waiting for the Gronowski boot. Bonamy has a much easier block. We talk about that backside wash. It plays just like it should. Backside wash gets everyone kind of flowing over the top. And Jazz has a cutback lane. If he is Caleb Johnson, he houses. And it just shows of like, even when Gronowski's not maybe scrambling on a third down or getting a power run game, having legs under center, boot action football is so valuable. And it'll, even when you're getting insane sets against Rutgers where they're putting 8 in the box, you can't believe how heavy they're playing in some situations. You're still able to run for the numbers you did because of Gronowski's legs, even in plays that it doesn't seem like he's impacting, he is.
Yeah, from the jump, you had multiple Rutgers players on the ground every single play. And that was something on rewatch, like the interior line was just mauling. I think why you saw hyper aggression from Rutgers is both sides of the ball, Lester and their defensive coordinator knew there was going to be a massive advantage on the O-line versus their D-line. And how Lester opened up the game was immediate going to play action pass. He knows he's going to get one-on-one looks on the outside. You have to punish this hyper-aggressive sets down the field and in the boot game, or you're going to continue to see action off the edge. I think the perfect example of Iowa football is our first touchdown run for Moulton. And I think this is an example of our double teams. I've usually pushed against Iowa's commitment to double teams on goal line and short yardage because I'd rather like to see guards build up to the second level. But this exemplifies why this style of double team works. And it is between Lauk and Stevens. They take the D tackle vertical, and how the D tackle is eventually utilized is essentially a battering ram. You have two guys in the gap behind him who should be available to make the play. But Moulton is able to follow the battering ram into the end zone because they have to get out of the way of their teammate. And that is the definition of why Iowa likes to stick with their double teams, is because you can make your own hole within zone concepts. And that was, a perfect example of that. And I think that's not going to be a case in a lot of games this year. I think Rutgers had an incredibly soft D-line. And that's really why we saw the scheme breakout that we did, where it's going to be, okay, we're either going to run right at you or we're going to throw deep because we know we're getting man-to-man sets down the field.
Yeah.
For what I called for in the Iowa State game, and I'm really glad we implemented this, was what we saw in the play-action pass game. So the first example of this is Phillips' first long catch. We try to utilize it with Seth Anderson on the first play of the game, the deep shot that he kind of gets held on. Gronowski was late to it. But these play-action sets where you have deep sets from Gronowski and you have only three-man route concepts. So what it allows for is your tight ends can stay in and block. And really what kills play-action pass, especially long developing play-action pass, is when teams can time up edge aggression against it and you can get a sack. And there's two examples of a positive aspect of this and then a negative aspect. So the first one is, again, the Phillips route, where it's a three-man combo route where Moulton sneaks out late to the flat for your check down if you need one. Seth Anderson's running your post to run off the safety, and then Phillips is on your underneath like crosser. That's who he goes to. The example of where it goes wrong is in the critical drive when we're down 4 and they get the sack before we get the defense a hold, and that gets us a first down. But what they are calling is their slot corner safety, Miller. I think we're in maybe a 2nd and 5. And it's one of those scenarios where the defensive coordinator can anticipate, okay, when they get to 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, they've been going to their play action deep set pass. I'm going to call my slot safety on a looping blitz where he can get around the tight end because he's not playing it like a run. He's playing it like the QB's going to be set 7 yards back. And he gets around, he gets Gronowski off his set, and then eventually gets the sack. And when that happened, I was like, that's the call. I saw the play coming in. I was like, man, that I anticipated play action prior to it. But that's really what you're going to need to balance now is, yes, you can protect your edges with your tight ends in these 7-man protections and deep play action sets. But how do you stop the guess from happening where they can take even the more looping action to get to your quarterback?
Yeah, I think my core takeaway is that Lester leaned into the strengths of this offense and of where we want to see this offense go forward with. Is you want to play 2 tight ends, you want to play under center, you want to use Gronowski's legs. But the way you really counter that is like you set up this kind of like feeding nature to the offense where if you don't heavy up, if you can't count on your defensive line, your front 4 and front 7 to stop it for less than 5, you have this aggressive counterpunch that can take chunks at a time, 40 yards, 30 yards, 20 yards. And that just eliminates your opportunity to do what you are bad at. You're not going to be a drop back and throw it on 3rd and 7 consistently. You're not going to be a drop back in 2nd and 7 and have a 2-man combo. That's going to be your bread and butter going forward. So I think what this game was, we leaned at exactly what our strengths are. Under center running to our running backs, running Gronowski and QB sets, and then deep passing game. Those 3 things are repeatable, and they can be played at a B+, A- level at what the personnel we have. Gronowski throws a great deep ball. These receivers aren't great guys that you want to be running over the middle of the field, but in a one-on-one situation where they can be scatty or just make plays on the ball, they have opportunities to make a one-on-one play. You're not going to probably play a team other than probably Penn State that's going to really give you pressure there. They're going to have opportunities to make deep ball catches throughout the year. So it seems like we found our identity in this game. We lacked it against Iowa State, and it's a repeatable identity that you're going to have to be able to use the rest of the season. The key is, and we're going to have this against Indiana, you have to start with running the ball first. This all falls apart very quickly if you're in a 2 tight end set under center, using Gronowski in the run game in some way through a boot action to give a fake, even when you have maybe numbers, and that's not successful. Then this all falls apart. Then if you're stepping back and throwing the receivers, we'll see what happens against Iowa State. But it's nice that they are putting themselves on the right foot initially and then gives themselves the ability to counter that in an effective way. So to go back also to your lineman burying people the entire time, Stevens is like the bully in the classroom at this point where everyone's trying to tell the teacher on him. Like he had a pull to the left side. It was like, I can't remember if it was a shotgun or whatever, but essentially, it got him manned up on a cornerback.
Oh, I'll break into that play.
Yeah, if you want to go into it. But how it ends is Stevens buries a cornerback, and then both of the cornerbacks even hitting, like his head's bouncing up, and he's like on the reverb. He like turns to the ref, be like complaining, and he just got mauled. Like the ref's probably like, what are you complaining about? You just got buried. And then like the ending play where you just kind of have this like constant mauling nature to the offensive line. Stevens pulls, and you just see his huge fucking head coming around the end. It's like, if you've played D end or like had to play that before and you see the huge D lineman pull, it's 2 minutes left in the game. Your only thing you can do is take that head on, and it's a death trap. It is a moment of like pure pain. And their Rutgers D end, he kind of gets hit by Gill at the same time, but Stevens lets Stevens square him up, and he kind of just bounces back. He doesn't take it on. And then we run right under him, and it goes for like 8 or whatever it is. But that is the beauty of like playing this like FU style. When you get to those critical moments where death is the only option to get a stop here or a huge hit against you, there's choices to back up. And I think that's where Iowa can get into the fourth quarter against a lot of teams, play that mauling style the entire time, and then let's see who wants to win in the last 6 minutes. And if we can get to that point against anybody, we can win a lot of games.
Yeah, that was the really positive aspect, is when you got the ball back after the Rex Roth pick, there's always worries that you're going to get really too passive and, give the ball back with maybe only a 6-point lead, and they've been passing the ball well. But that first play, I think we run a counter power, and we just sled the line, get the kick out, and go for 8. And that's what you're talking to. It's like you need to break their guys' will. So when it comes time for a will play, there's just nothing there.
Yeah, it's not like any other sport.
I think before we get done with offense, let's break out. You want to break out the DJV play, and then the screen to the tight end screen. Yeah. And then if you want me to do it, I can.
I can break into it. It's the same exact set we ran against Minnesota. We've ran this consistently. It's a common practice. We actually stole this from the Brian Ferentz era. But in 2022, on the very first drive, I think at Minnesota, we run this kind of hesitation screen to the tight end on a 5 wide. It's really hard to play because in the 5 wide situation,
it's a 4 wide.
4 wide
because you're motioning Terrell out. We've been showing the same look a lot.
You
of the
can
year.
just break it down.
We've been showing the same look a lot of the year where Terrell will be on an arrow to the flats where we'll screen up the front end. So then you have fast action to the flats to stop Terrell, and then Vonnegut comes back underneath. It's a variation of what we ran against Minnesota, but it was the first time we really got to see DJV in space, and I think we saw it. We projected out that he was going to be an NFL player one day. I am utterly convinced as a redshirt freshman, if you're moving that way at that size, you're only going to get more, adept at your body. I think he's really going to be
to put top that much weight on and to have that you cruising like you was like there's a safety probably 5 yards downfield that had an angle on him for like a 7-yard gain or something like that, and he broke the angle easily. And I was like, and he's way he's built too. Like, he only needs a few more pounds, like a handful.
He's a top 4 round tight end.
Yeah, that guy, he's going to be the centerpiece of our offense next year. if they can get him going a little more, like there was a 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 5, we targeted him as the number one guy on that pick play that Gronowski shorted. Obviously, you're giving him a call to go score on that play. I think when you get to game 9, 9, and 10, it's kind of like Laporta creeping in late to 20 would have been
2019,
yeah, against Northwestern. You're going to see DJV more and more often just because he's like the most versatile piece in this offense.
So to wrap up offense, I think it's a great breakdown of what Leicester's scheme allows. So on this one, you have a tight alignment with Gill, and I think it was maybe Large on the left side of the line, and you're going to motion Terrell Washington in for a jet sweep. Traditionally, you would want your X receiver where Gill's at. You want a Dayton Howard, an RVZ, because he's going to crack down on the play side DN or maybe outside backer in this case. That is an incredibly bad mismatch for most wide receivers. He gets the wall down, and then all of a sudden you get Lauk on the edge running free. And that's one of those where he gets to shove the guy. I think it demonstrates two pieces. Gill is a hell of a blocker at the point of attack. If you trust a guy to block an edge player as a wide receiver and you execute it, that's awesome. Watching Lauk in space, too. It's a redshirt freshman left tackle. Redshirt sophomore left tackle. He is going to develop into a hell of a piece one day. And I think as this season goes on, we're going to see him continue to be a guy you use in space because he moved it exceptionally well. And that's not really what we anticipated from him, is to be that good of a mover. So O-line is just developed in a really strong fashion. I think as you get more guys healthy, I think the offense is going to move into a really nice spot. So now we're going to move into defense. Probably the worst defensive performance since 2021 Nebraska when you played Smothers as a backup QB at Nebraska.
Yeah.
A little bit of a different scenario because in that scenario you moved from who's the guy that he replaced that year? I think he moved from a non-option QB to an option QB.
No, the starting QB had legs. It wasn't. Smothers ran like a 4.3. That's what is like the track numbers. I think it was Martinez, wasn't it?
Perhaps. Smothers was not a 4.3 guy, but he's
they track numbers that they had, whatever the starter was, actually they were like, oh, Smothers, no way he's fast as that guy. And then it was like Smothers is actually faster. It's like a surprising thing.
So in that game, it was almost the exact same scenario where they went 3 touchdowns in 3 possessions. What Rutgers did, and we can break through various concepts here. Some of them are very basic, some of them are a little more high level. But at the start, it felt like, I think it was the short side of the field, edge pressure from Lee, where Athan recognized it and their tight end checked to a curl and they hit an RPO curl against Lee's press. Mm-hmm. And it had that same feel that 2019 Minnesota versus Penn State where Soraka just had everything dialed up. I think what we saw was, if you look at the rest of Rutgers' schedule, it's kind of murderer's row. Mm-hmm. You have your first Big Ten home game at home against a beatable opponent, and you're playing Phil Parker, who you have a lot of experience with. I think they buried a ton of time into this scheme.
It's a night game. It's 50 sold out crowd. You're going to be 3-0 most likely. That we played Penn State. We played as Penn State. We played as Oregon. Like what they'll come into this year, where they're like, this is the gettable one that changes our program, and it felt like that.
So how they opened up with, and I knew we were in trouble right away, was short side of the field attack against this cover 6 squat corner. We broke out squat corner in the Phil Parker breakdown if you need some background to it. They open up with a hitch underneath Hall, come back to it immediately after with a corner route flag over the top of Hall as he gets baited on an underneath route.
Yeah. And
that really set the stage for, Athan knows what he's looking at and Athan knows where he needs to go. Mm-hmm. The other aspect of this was we talked about a lot in the first 2 game breakdowns, how this aggressive edge alignment by our corners where we are head up on these wide receivers allows for, fade shots, allows for the QB to really know what he's looking at a lot of the time. And you saw that play out over and over again in the passing game. And most of all, Ian Strong, he's going to be a guy I draft in fantasy no matter what in a couple of years. He's going to go under the radar as a Rutgers wide receiver, probably get drafted in the top 5 rounds in the NFL. But my God, is that guy a good player? Mm. And they just made contested catch after contested catch after contested catch. And what really surprised me was just how talented the receiving core was. You saw Sheffield on the opening drive they had where we're in a cover 1 high set with Lutmer, our fastest guy on our team, and Sheffield just beats him on a slot fade by 2 yards.
Yeah.
And I think it was a scenario where Lutmer kind of gives him a soft shoulder to the outside. He's playing inside technique. but I don't think he anticipated Sheffield to have that giddy up. And, Lutmer went on to have a great game, but man, right from the jump, when you get beat on a slot fade like that, that's a repeatable event.
Oh, I mean, there's a reason why Phil came out and blitzed 6 of the first 7 possessions in the second half. And really, Phil called the most aggressive game we've seen him call in years in terms of differentiating his calls, being aggressive on second down. He felt so off kilter after those first 3 drives, as he should, because he had, as you mentioned, short-side attack against Hall. Hall got high-load the first drive. Shire then, since it's a high-low game against Hall is like, you can tell the coaching staff's like, Hall, just get depth. It's fine. You're in your quarters coverage. Shire will cover. And Shire covers the out on the first 3rd and 5. He tries to gun it. He doesn't have the speed to get to the tight end. They complete it. He dives and misses it by a yard. And then they go, all right, well, he just gunned the out route. Let's go an out and up. And so they basically played their entire concept in the first 2 drives through the short side of the field, attacking Hall and Shire to their combo of their zones they're running. And after that, we came in and pressed Hall the rest of the game and said, we're not going to give you high-low, consistently. But to have Hall get beat on a high-low, Shire get beat on his responsibility and not getting, depth and then out, and then getting out and up, having Lee get beat the way he did, have Lutmer get beat on a fade route, and then have Harrell have the misassignments on his read options. Phil probably felt for the first time like, I have 5 guys getting beat against Rutgers. And like when you have 5 guys making individual mistakes in terms of didn't high-low that perfectly, just got beat on a route.
Getting beat a lot.
As a coordinator, confidence has to be like, I can't call something that gives us a better solution if I can't count on 5 straight guys across the board. All of them are making mistakes. It's similar how we broke down the Iowa State offensive scheme, where it felt like we make a good play and we have someone mess up. And it's like, what happened against Iowa State on offense? 7 different things. That's what was happening to our defense. It's just like a multitude of issues and a multitude of people underperforming. The big change, if you want to get into the second half of the adjustment we made, was essentially Shire's not going to be in pass coverage the rest of the time. If we're weak side and Shire would have a curl flat responsibility, we're blitzing him every time. And the very first play of the second half, the big adjustment he made was we're blitzing Shire every freaking time if he's in weak side to the short side. And we're going to roll Wampa down, and he's going to play Shire's responsibility.
Yeah.
And so the first play of the second half, we blitz Shire. They don't have they don't have a running back in to stop it. They didn't expect it. And Llewellyn runs free and gets a sack. And then the rest of the game, it's just like, we're blitzing Shire, and you're going to have Wampa rolling out and playing his role. Later in the half, they do execute against Wampa a few times, even though we're putting a more athletic guy there, basically playing a bigger linebacker in that same situation where they kind of piece him up and make some contested catches. But Phil had to completely change. Like they itched it. You think about offensive coordinators and what Soraka does well is he itches something, and he didn't stop itching it to the point where Phil's like, we're not putting Shire in coverage.
Yeah.
And I think that was obviously the 8th time they've played. And as you mentioned, Soraka knew exactly who he was attacking, but Phil had his hardest time matching up against a Soraka offense in terms of personnel-wise. And really, this type of game against our defense is I get it was a night game. I get we're on the back foot right away. And good thing the second half went better. But, man, that's a lot of seniors getting beat. And we're about to play, Rutgers is good. They're going to do that to a lot of teams. They're going to do that to Minnesota this weekend and look good. They're going to do it to other mid-tier teams, Nebraska, if they play them. But you're about to play Indiana, Oregon, Penn State, USC, Michigan State, Nebraska. They all have equal personnel to them. You're not going to tell me Rutgers has guaranteed better personnel than those guys. They're going to have worse than some. So if that's itching, you're being itched in a bunch of different ways. Get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready to call aggressive games, Phil, because that's what this looks like.
Well, I think I'm going to break into 3 plays here, just in succession. The first one is I want to break down that wheel route from Shire because I think it's going to be something we see again. And it's a product of aligning aggressively out wide. So we talked about how this puts a lot more pressure on your slot defenders because you're not giving the opportunity for that outside corner to either sit in a squat or sit high in a cover 3 and get his eyes back to the ball. So that means he's isolated now on that short side of the field. when you have a guy isolated with slow feet like that, I mean, that really should have been a touchdown.
Yeah,
that's
a great call.
The throw was a miss, but it should have been a touchdown. And it was just one of those moments where it's like, man, we're really getting called up right now.
Yeah, but even if you isolate him in a one, let's say you play him in phase earlier, that doesn't change that play. Because I get if he's off 7 yards, but I'm pretty sure the route against him would have caught him up anyways.
It would have, but it doesn't give you no matter what, he's not. If it's a straight cover 3, he doesn't match that inside 100%, the outside corner. He likely does.
Given the depth of the route, he does.
He does, but it's more so when you get that. I think it's more so when the QB sees press man wide.
Yeah,
he knows this linebacker.
Was he facing the receiver?
Yes.
Okay.
So he knows that linebacker's naked.
Yeah.
And then let's just get into the read options, because this is probably the worst indictment I've seen from linebacker play at Iowa in 10 years.
Yeah.
And so on the first read option, they score their second touchdown of the game on. You have this tight end coming in jet motion that is accounted for when we're on our goal line defensive set. So it's like this kind of amoeba match man to man where you're playing a straight line and then you just take whoever basically comes into your space. In this case, the jetting tight end is going to be picked up by X. Our call is that you have the DN crash into the running back. So although typically in sets where we're going to slant the D-line one way and the linebacker is going to fill backside C, in this case, both linebackers should have known they were clean for QB read.
Mm-hmm.
Both guys don't see the QB read. They don't really know their assignment, and Ethan walks in on the goal line from 6 out.
Mm-hmm.
That's just embarrassingly bad linebacker play. And this is fifth-year seniors. Harold's 6th year. I think both are 5th year.
Yeah.
But this is teaching where, both guys aren't super athletically gifted, but you cannot make this mistake.
Mm-hmm.
They come back to the identical play from the 11 or 12 yards out. This time we're not in our roll down goal line set, so Shire has to take the jetting tight end out to the flats. But Harold is again naked with the QB. The D end is chasing down the running back. He has running back responsibility in this QB read. You don't have anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one else in the planet you could possibly have. He plays it for some reason to backside C again, looking for the running back, and Nathan just runs around him and runs in for a touchdown. And I just don't understand. After you already got beat out once in the game,
mm-hmm.
you've probably had this repped legitimately 400 times in your career.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What is going on in your brain that we could blindfold you, and you'd have a better chance at finding the QB right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, because this is
well, the way we countered it was just we just end up shooting our D end at that. We're all right, D end, you're not playing down the line anymore. You're just going to shoot at the quarterback. You saw Herkett do it one time. Brian Allen damn near killed Ethan, but he got clipped at the last second. But we had to take it out of his hands. We're saying, all right, you got backside flow C.
Yeah,
that's your rule. Because if we give it to the D end, at least he's going to sprint at him and scare the shit out of him.
Yeah,
because you had responsibility.
But that's not what you want to be doing. No. You want to have Ethan on the edge with your middle linebacker. That's an ideal scenario.
Yes.
You get a hit on the QB, and you have a slow, not a fleet of foot QB.
Not a make you miss guy.
Not a make you miss.
Straight line guy. Yeah, it's where you
and you get a power bomb if you get to him.
Exactly.
So
I would say we can sum up the defense. They can. All right, Rutgers is going to execute that passing game against a lot of teams. That's the reality. They're going to move the ball. But the fact that we had 3 straight red zone possessions, it wasn't like they were scoring from the 30 out or 40 out. You had opportunities to get stops in the red zone, all 3 touchdowns, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. No, Shire got beat in the hole.
Yep, and then 2 red zone runs, right, from Ethan. So
from Ethan, yeah.
That's not acceptable from Iowa. To have Rutgers in the red zone, that's where we want to live. You look at their O-line, it's like a bunch of 6'2", 305 guys. There's not one mauler in that group. And to have them run in the way they did 3 times is that's, Wallace and Parker are freaking out. They're like, all right, boys, they can high level you at the outside. That's fine. That's going to happen. But we do not give up red zone touchdowns to Rutgers in 3 straight possessions.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
So I think what this is when you look at that type of performance and the full scope of the season now, you have 4 games to judge these guys off. Lee's job is 100% open. We wanted to give him credence as a senior before the season. He clearly got pulled in this game. Even the second half adjustments where most people relaxed like Lutmer and Hall and made more plays in the game, he did not. He did not step up his level. And it's been 3 years of this. His job is 100% going to Watson at a moment's notice if it's not already his. Why is Rexroth not in the rotation at middle or Shire's position and weak side?
I would like to see, if I had it my way, I would go from what we see from Rexroth, play him at weak, move Shire to middle.
Yeah.
Shire is not having a great year, but he's seeing stuff better. And when he's got better feet too.
Yeah.
So again, with Harrell right now, you're at a point where he's not moving well. You're already getting him isolated in a lot of speed games, and then he's not seeing anything either.
Yeah.
And he's not being overly physical in the hole. So
there's qualities to each thing.
I don't think we're gonna see him get benched because there's no one on the team. Someone would have beat him out already if there's a guy that's better.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And this is where Ben Keeter should be starting at middle linebacker right now.
Yeah.
That's where this recruiting hole is.
Yep. Do you want to move into Indiana now?
Yeah. And I think
I guess let's talk about some special team stuff because we didn't cover that. So opening kickoff, I had never in my life seen a straight line opening kickoff return. I think they caught him with some technique because you see there's 4 guys on the ground as they pan back to this. So they must have done something where they identified that these guys are not watching the correct area. We can blindside these guys. So I think they blindsided, had this like odd cross.
There's a car crash in the middle of the field. Yeah.
And then just a crazy way to open up a game is a guy walking to a kickoff return in.
And something about, a Schiano team versus a Ferentz team and Ferentz's team catching them in this. It's like watching like the best 2 judo players or wrestlers and someone catches like a finesse move on them or something like that, where it's like, these are like black belts in special teams. And we have that opportunity to beat a Schiano team in a massive moment. It was exactly what Ferentz is all about.
We're scouting special teams incredibly well.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way you can play out something that like impeccable is that someone's watching this really intently. And that's probably why you pay LeVar to be a specific special teams coach, because he can do stuff like this.
100%.
And then block field goal, typical Iowa, unreal. And then, but you also had your own missed field goal. That's starting to kind of creep up a little bit. And you really need that. You're going to be playing so many 50-50 games. You cannot be missing 40-yard field goals.
The ANF Podcast is sponsored by Eye Surgeons Associates, proudly serving Eastern Iowa and Western Illinois for all your eye care needs for over 40 years. Next time you're looking for an all-inclusive beach vacation, consider Via Puesta del Sol or Via Puerto Escondido, both of which overlook the Pacific Ocean in Ocotal, Costa Rica, providing an exceptional all-inclusive experience for your family and friends. Visit their website, linked down below, for more information or to reserve your trip today.
Indiana preview? Which side do you want to start on?
I think you start with their offense. And I just want to start with Cignetti as a whole. We are witnessing the greatest turnaround in college football history in my lifetime. I think you look at Saban, what he did at Alabama was incredible. That stretch he had of 10 years where you're competing for a national title every year, the depth of those teams was insane. But for Cignetti to level up Indiana the way they have, where now they're 7.5-point favorites at Iowa, and the nature of like how good the personnel is, and
without having that high of recruiting,
without the recruiting numbers to back it up, of going like these are 5-star. He's got this like money guy that's bringing in all these dudes, and to now truly like you watch him against Notre Dame and Ohio State, rewatching the games from last year, and then watching him against everybody else in terms of the mid-tier, Washington, Nebraska, Michigan State, UCLA, those teams that Iowa kind of bumps up against in terms of talent, and beating them by 30, 40, 50, beating Illinois by 50. Like they're clearly sitting behind Ohio State and Oregon in terms of like title contenders, but it's a notch. It's a very slight notch in terms of like how they're playing right now.
This is the most complete offense I've broken down since we started doing this, besides Ohio State last year.
Yeah.
And I would like, you have to throw Will Howard in there, who I didn't really love. And I think I could have baked in maybe he throws us a pick or two. Yeah. With Mendoza, I'm to the point where I think he's top 5 pick, and I think he might be first guy off the board next spring. But
so then I think that's like the easiest thing to go to is quarterback and receiver. But what Cignetti's done and what's so impressive about this, and why the efficiency numbers are the way they are, and why SP Plus loves them, and why all these net metrics love them, is because of their line of scrimmage play, which is the most impressive part about this. If you told me Indiana hired, if we're playing Indiana, Wisconsin in back-to-back weeks, and you're telling me you're 7.5-point dogs at home to one of them 2 years ago, I go, Wisconsin, of course. Like Fickle must have figured it out. You tell me it's Indiana? Like, well, what do they have? Like NFL, receivers and quarterbacks? It's like, no, they're actually unreal at the O-line and D-line. Have Cignetti own the line of scrimmage the way he has against teams like us, and even rushing for 150 yards against Ohio State last year with his running backs, that is like unheard of. Like line of scrimmage play is so 4 stars and 5 stars developed.
Because you don't see O-line, D-line just come out of nowhere.
And
it's almost impossible to occur. Because it's a strength game. It's like heavyweight wrestling.
Exactly.
That's how you describe it.
So, and you need 5 of them.
Yeah.
And for him to level up the program the way he has, not only just a tier to like, he's like, I feel like this is a guaranteed, like feels like a playoff team unless some bounces don't go their way. From Indiana, of what we've known of, 6 wins is like an incredible season. Tom Allen made his money on winning 7 games. And now you have this team that like legitimately looks at Michigan as like, we're probably better than you. Like Michigan this year, we're better than you. Michigan's history, resources, everything. Cignetti's coaching job and turnaround this program is only second to none to Saban if this continues. It's a massive game for that threshold. If you look at like Indiana this year, go on the road and beat Iowa by 2 scores, the rebuild and whatever this program is going to happen until he leaves. This is the kind of threshold game. Yeah, you just beat crap out of Illinois. If you go on the road and beat Iowa, that kind of has, stuck its chest out and been the top tier team for the last 10 years in this middle tier and beating the rivals of the region.
At home too. It's like
and
you step into Kinnick, you're going to a 2:30 Kinnick game.
We're not missing you. We know exactly how good you are, and Kinnick knows how good you are. This is like the threshold for him to step into a new level, guaranteed. Or it's like, all right, there's still a chink in this armor somewhere. So it's an incredible game for both programs because I was desperately trying to have them become relevant again. And Indiana's trying to kick the door down to being talked about as a contender, not for the Big Ten, but like the national title.
Yeah, so let's just get into personnel and then scheme.
Yeah.
So at the top, Mendoza has everything you could ask for in a college QB. Has the arm strength, has, really sneaky legs. His body build, you're not really going to see a guy that you think would be running, probably like a 4.5, but I think he's probably in that range. Outside of that, you have Surratt, Cooper, and Williams, all 6'3", all 6'2", all can really move.
I think Cooper's 6 foot, but the other 2 are 6'3".
He's still a larger receiver. They use him in the QB, the wide receiver wham game and the blocking game, which is a really odd thing we'll break out. Where they like to attack, and this is, I've watched so much Indiana this summer and then a lot of this fall. I've been trying to figure out why they like evened up sets so often. And why I think they love this evened up set is it allows them to attack the high slot. So where the high slot is it's behind the linebackers, just inside the corner and just in front of the safety. And why that is so important to be based out, evened up, is what it allows for you is to attack both high slots at one time. And you're not allowing those high safeties in cover 4 to buzz down. And if you do get a buzz, you're attacking it with an RPO. So they're trying to create a pressure of an outside post route, an outside attack with every single set whenever they align out of even. And that really feeds into they want to attack the middle of the field at 10 to 15 with these tall receivers because that is the skill set of those guys. Is they can high point. You can see them over the middle. It's the easiest throw for Mendoza. And it really allows for explosive plays and it really allows for easier completions in the passing game.
And it's also a huge thing to tie in with how they play their formation. They're in shotgun, inside run every single play. You're never going to see them under center. And so if you are going to be running in the interior line through zone or power concepts and sometimes off tackle, you need to scare the crap out of you behind that. So you have to attack the deep middle of the field if linebackers are now playing that game.
Exactly. So how they do this is they run a variation of condensed 2x2 shotgun. What this allows for, as we've talked about this with Lester, is the outermost defender within a zone set almost invariably has vertical responsibility. So if you're going to attack outside the numbers, it's great that you are now isolated on the outermost corner, and you've also condensed the slot corner who has an opportunity to attack you or has an opportunity to get underneath your outbreaking routes. You see this against Illinois on their touchdown throw. I think it's like to go up 28-7 or something like that in the first half.
It's a horrible rep.
It's a horrible rep by the off corner, but it exemplifies the angle that you're looking at where you're going to condense it slightly and then you get an outbreaking route against an isolated guy who has he plays way too far off, but it shows, the space you're trying to attack. What they'll do, the other thing they'll do is they'll widen these guys, and then you'll see their interior slot wide receivers be able to attack in the seam, and you'll have the outside receivers be able to attack in that high slot in the RPO. And that is really their base attack that they break out. The last two things I'll break into, and I'll kick it back to you, are their usage of their running backs. So Hemby and Black are going to be, gigantic issues within this game. Black, I think in particular, in their inside zone runs, you see him when he gets to that second level. If they're able to create space and let him get evened up with some of our secondary defenders, he's going to be a huge problem. But where I'm really worried about is, since we're going to be playing this aggressive press sets out wide, and we'll discuss later why we're likely going to be doing that again, is you're going to have linebackers isolated on running backs with the ability to be collisioned by picking receivers, and also just have a lot of space to cover against really athletic guys. And there's a play against Illinois where they run that reduced set. They get a very obvious offensive PI pick.
But it's the running back is not downfield, though. There's a rule in place. If you're not 2 yards downfield, there is no flag.
There's no flag.
Yeah.
So, but they get Hemby on the corner, and I would almost guarantee you're going to see this exact same action, is Pace moving outside, isolating Harrell or Shire in arrow routes all day, because these guys could really freaking move. The next is, because we're having a very difficult time identifying read option, they have this set against Kennesaw State where it's an evened up shotgun set with two tight ends. They run an inside zone fake that eats up your middle linebacker. They then will wheel route their left tight end and bring their other tight end across the field to overload the short side of the field, which is, this is going to be a very common set for what we run against them, is we can get overloaded to the short side out of shotgun. I think that this is going to be something they run probably at the 20-yard line, something to pick up 10 to 15 yards in an easy set. Yeah, that's all I got.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other aspect you're going to see, obviously you're in shotgun. We talked about the RPO game is going to be a huge aspect of this. In back-to-back plays, just to highlight a personnel piece that is probably the most special player other than Mendoza is Cooper. And Illinois is in cover one high, essentially, horrendous rep by the slot corner, doesn't get hands on Cooper, and Cooper takes the inside slant for, I think, 30 yards. Breaks a few tackles, really shows who he is after the catch. This looks like, I'd say, almost want to say Bateman, but like a little more Tyler Johnson-ish, like kind of like giving the 6-foot build, his strength after the catch of breaking tackles. And then something you will always see, if you turn on an Indiana game from the last year and a half, bubble screens with these large receivers is what they love to live in. And it kind of like you start breaking out this attack, it's like, all right, they're going to attack you through the run game through the middle and then off edge with, their QB read. They're going to attack you at 10 to 15 yards with their big receivers. And then they also can attack you to flats with these receiver bubbles. And then you have 6'3" and 6'2" receivers leading the blocking with a physical guy like Cooper. And they run that in back-to-back plays, the RPO and then a bubble to Cooper. And it just highlights of like, this team is personnel-wise built perfectly of what they want to do. But they've done it by selectively grabbing guys. You expect an offense that's going to be in the top 5 and top 10 for efficiency to be grabbing guys against Alabama and Georgia and Notre Dame. But they've selectively found guys that fit their scheme well. Obviously, Mendoza from Cal was a hot product, but Nowakowski, their tight end, who's like this hybrid fullback, is from Wisconsin and wasn't impactful there. Hemby was at Maryland, was good, wasn't like some first-team All-Big Ten player. Surratt was like St. Francis, PA, I think he started at school, and then I think he was at JMU and then at Indiana. I can't remember that transfer route, but wasn't some huge recruit. Omar Cooper was the high three-star at Indiana, and E.J. Williams was a burnout at Clemson. And they've combined to turn this into a top 5 team because of the personnel decisions they've made. Obviously, this OC's been with Cignetti for how long?
Since 2016, I think. He was at Elon with him. I think he was even at Indiana.
So when you run this scheme over and over, you really know what you're looking for. And this team has really identified personnel that maybe the next level isn't guaranteed, but they all fit together very well. And once again, the last piece of this is the O-line. This is where Iowa has to win, and where Indiana has separated itself from mid-tier programs has been on the O-line. There is some stories there that will be interesting. Like, can Iowa have an upper leg on the line of scrimmage here that other teams haven't. Have our D-line play closer to what they played against Notre Dame, closer to what they play against Ohio State. And that's where we have to prove this game out, because given their personnel and like their essentially multifaceted offense, they're going to move the ball. But when you get into the third and fourth quarter, we make our adjustments. Can we make plays from our defensive line like we did against Iowa State, like we did against Rutgers, where the game kind of fell into our hands more of getting off the field? And really where you're going to have an opportunity to win this game is stretching that game to the fourth quarter, making them play not this like bullying mode of up by 14 and then pouring it on you when they're not making a bad decision. And that's what they really feel like when they're on offense sometimes. Is it felt like watching Ohio State last year where you're like, all right, call the play to anybody.
Yeah.
If you put the guy, anyone who's on the field, you put the ball in their hands, like it's kind of the right spot and the right time for it. So we have to negate their run game because they love to lean on it. And Cignetti's made it a staple of this program to continuously run the ball.
Well, and they're just not lazy with their RPO game. If you're going to give them off coverage outside, which I don't think we're going to do, they will kill you with the RPO curl. Mm-hmm. And that ball is going to get out fast, and then Cooper's going to have an opportunity to beat you. Another thing they do really well is the RB screen game. I feel like all the Indiana games I've watched in the past 2 years, they've always had a super well-timed RB screen that goes for like 20. Mm-hmm. They various different types of screen games. Reason that doesn't really work well against Iowa is because we're always working through O-linemen. We utilize bull rushes, and a lot of the time we will only really give one guy a true go. The rest of guys are playing contain. As we do shut down the screen pretty well because we're not letting the O-linemen get around us. We can feel that pressure and get off of it. What I think is going to occur, and this is going to be, an idea of what we've seen from the Iowa defense already, is our red zone execution is not at a high level. So typically when Phil has a really talented, well-educated defense that he can trust in, he is comfortable backing up and playing off coverage because when it comes to the red zone, he believes that he can have the correct calls on and his guys will make the correct reads and we'll get a stop. Furthermore, when you have larger corners, you're not susceptible as much to the fade ball, which is a huge piece of red zone attack. In this case, if we move to Watson, even if you move away from Lee, you're still going to be putting a smaller guy on the field in Watson. You're not going to really want to tee up Surratt. There's a play I saw against Kennesaw State, an executed slot fade, where I texted you. I said, look at this play. This is why we're losing. Yeah. Because if they are going to get to the red zone, they're going to execute at a super high level with his QB and receiver room. So what that's going to require then is what we've seen from Phil is this ability to play more aggressive out wide, even with the understanding that this is going to lead to more explosive plays. Because what you're trying to do is at least force high-end execution. And that's going to take away their RPO game and the RPO curl game. That's going to take away their RPO slant game. It's going to put a hell of a lot of pressure on Lutmer and Shire again in the flats against these running backs and tight ends. But if you allow Mendoza to just sit back there, read the defense, and react post-snap, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a lot of movement. So what I anticipate is that what it's going to come down to is a lot of what we just saw with Rutgers and Iowa State. Whether you're going to line up on a 2nd and 10, we're going to press you out wide, and the whole stadium's going to go, let's press coverage out wide against Surratt. That's probably going down the field. And how high end or how many points they score in this game is going to come down to how well do they execute that deep shot against press.
I disagree. I don't think it's going to be as aggressive sets as we saw against Iowa State and Rutgers because of the home crowd. I think, at least for the first half, too, Phil doesn't want to show his full hand in the first half. He wants to get to that second half and make adjustments so you don't have
Yeah, but we ran that the first half against Iowa State and Rutgers. Is you just because you think that's going to be auto touchdowns?
I just think that with the home crowd and the environment we're going to be in, we want to at least make them execute early. And they will. I think with the personnel you're playing, but you have to let them. You have to see it first, at least for a drive. I think there's been an earlier switch.
But it's not only Watson that you want to play this press coverage in. It's Hall can't negotiate space either. That's what got him pulled off the field is when they would line him at 7, he got beat on double moves like 3 times.
I think this is the end game. I completely agree with you. I think pressing is, but when you
want to shorten the game,
when you're going to have the environment you have, you're going to be in. If they're in 3rd and 5, it's going to be deafening. If you back them up to the north end zone, it's going to be deafening. Let your defense play with the home crowd. Like I think there was a little bit of nature to this. Like the defense has played in two insane environments. Like Iowa State's environment when Iowa State was on offense was like this powder keg of like every big play had a huge like roar. Rutgers is 55,000 sold out like night game. Like allow your defense to settle in a game where they're feeling confident, where they have 70,000 versus 100. And I think that's where I'd rather, maybe by drive 2, you're out of this mode, but let's see how this D-line rushes with a better, snap count, where it's not just, them identifying every blitzer and every roll. Let Kinnick work for you on defense, at least for a few drives. And like, there might be a reality where this personnel is once again getting beat by a really good offense and you have to become more aggressive. And I want to see that not in this third quarter, but in the second quarter, because Indiana jumps and rolls. They get up by 14 and then they bury you. So you can't let it get to 14. You can't let it get to 10 because then their defense obviously is great as well. But I think there will be, that's why I'm pushing back, is like there will be a little bit of a cautiousness to allow at least us to get our feet with the opportunity to maybe Mendoza gets a little rattled. And
I think it will that would definitely help our linebackers play at a higher level too, if they're not left on islands as much.
Yeah.
I think that was more of a reflection of just what we've seen from Leon Hall. But I think I agree, when you're playing such an efficient offense, our goal is going to be try to limit possessions in this game, because if you play 15 possessions against Indiana, they win by 4 scores.
Yeah.
If you play 8, maybe you can make plays on 4 of them.
Yeah.
So I think the last thing I want to cover is their over-the-middle passing attack that they've done it in a really unique way. And it's a reflection of the skill set of Mendoza and these receivers. One of them they run, if you ever see them line up in this 3-bunch set, that's when they're going to try and attack downfield or do something funky downfield. They like this 3-bunch set where Cooper will be the point of it. 2 different examples of it. They've beat this Tampa 2 look. You'll see teams usually break out around the 20 or 25. Tampa 2 is usually a red zone defense where you'll have the middle linebacker drop to around 12 to 15 yards, and he's going to carry any slot receiver that comes, from the outside deeper, and then you're going to have 2 safeties covering the outside parts of the field. How they attack this is really unique. I haven't really seen, I think maybe I've seen some NFL teams do this, but they'll run a crosser essentially acting like he's going to cross the face of the Tampa 2. And the minute he crosses the face of the Tampa 2, he breaks it vertical, and they throw a dart beam over the middle. And I think they hit 2 touchdowns in the preseason so far on it already. What it is doing is that Tampa 2 middle linebacker, if that guy was to stay on his outside, he would then open up to him and take him deep. But when he crosses his face, he thinks he's getting a crossing route.
He loses responsibility.
And then he breaks it up right over the top of him. That's just a really, really solid breakdown. I think we don't run a lot of Tampa 2. Yeah. And I with Harrell, we ran a decent amount with Higgins. Higgins is great because he's just intelligent. But with Harrell, I don't think we'll see it. But just one of those plays I wanted to break out because it's cool. The other is they hit Williams with this in their last game, but it's out of that bunch set where they'll set you up wide, where you have a ton of pressure out wide, then break it back in. It's an example of, even in semi-well-covered plays, when you have tall receivers with a big arm QB, Mendoza just lasers this thing. And it's so cool.
He layered it in too, right? Yeah.
It's so cool because right before it's like he's calling for an alley-oop, he just points up.
Yeah.
And he goes, throw us high. And he goes up and high points it. And it's just like, man, you see enough of this execution from the receiver group of Mendoza. And I have about as low of hopes that we're going to hold a team to sub 30, in my lifetime.
Yeah. That's not Ohio State.
That's not Ohio State. But I could even talk myself into some prior Ohio State teams. But this one with Mendoza playing at the level he is and how well he's seen everything, it's like you just can't
I'll push back on that a little bit.
You can't leave things out there for him.
I agree with you. I think Surratt's proven he can execute on the highest level. What was that Illinois team? I think that's my one saving grace of how Indiana clearly looked really good on offense against them. And they looked against Indiana State, who gave up 63 to Montana.
I know, but we're talking about last year too. So
I know.
They have so many data points out there. Like, these receivers ball out against anyone besides
Cooper
the highest.
He looks different this year, and he's I get what you're saying. It's just I don't think there's a guaranteed 30 bomb from them. I think there's an opportunity that when you play this type of defense in an environment and you still have great coaching and seniors, there's a way that we have some personnel wins. I don't think Nowakowski is this unguardable guy. I don't think Hemby is this beatable back. I don't think their O-line is going to be mauling us to the extent they've mauled other teams. There's just kind of some like touch points where I feel like Iowa could drag these guys into a game on a defensive side, and it's just because you're not on the road in a night game or a rivalry game. Like I think we haven't seen them in a true environment that's like, dead silent and they're very comfortable in. So I think we'll see. I think we'll know a lot by halftime. We'll know what the result will probably be at halftime.
DBs, where the DBs are currently at, the lack of pass rush.
Yeah.
The way you're going to be able to isolate linebackers, I think they're going to walk all day.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's move on to their defense. Once again, this is a team that's built through line of scrimmage play, and it's not built by, 4-star and 5-star personnel players, but Cignetta's done a great job of bringing in guys that fit his scheme. And obviously had a guy drafted by the 49ers last year. And Landino and was it Tucker?
Tucker, yeah.
Tucker is their D tackle play. Kamara as their kind of hybrid D end. And this scheme, it operates in a really unique way because it can play a 3-4 front, 5-2 front, 3-3 front, 4-2-5. And really, there's like, when you watch Iowa, it's really easy to identify pre-snap what you're looking at, and you can see it repetitive through personnel changes by the offense or just like what we generally run. We run a few schemes. This feels more like Washington last year where you're really seeing a lot of different stuff consistently. But what is consistent is that they don't allow you to run the ball. And when you don't allow to run the ball, when you're rewatching these 23, 25-minute videos of them, you're constantly seeing the other offense in 3rd and 7 and 3rd and long. And then these guys get creative. They love to bring, Fisher is constantly in a spy or a blitz. If you see Fisher around the line of scrimmage on a 3rd and long, he's generally coming or going to have some responsibility on the quarterback. He rarely drops. Jones has been this hybrid linebacker piece that keeps on popping up and making plays in the blitzing game. And essentially their entire defense, you don't feel confident what you would look at every time you're in 3rd and long, so you don't want to be there. So Iowa needs to get to 3rd and manageable where they have to get less creative. And that might be the issue of this game is that Indiana's based their entire program off their line of scrimmage play on both sides of the ball. If we can't run the ball, it gets really confusing on 3rd and long against these guys.
Yeah, I'll break into 3 different aspects of it. I think we can have some plays that break into it as well. But so they are very much similar to a Minnesota build where they're going to dedicate their front 6 to stopping the run, and then their back 4 is an umbrella, backup. They bail out really hard on their cover 4 sets and their cover 3. I think the odds of us getting into the fade ball shot or a deep post against these guys is hyper low. I think the intermediate passing games where you're going to want to go. But it feels like there's almost like a disjointed aspect of it where it's like these guys cover the pass, these guys cover the run.
100%.
So what they do well out of this is, this is a theme for most zone defenses, but where the defensive coordinator is trying to do is draw your eyes to various aspects of the zone pre-snap and then flip it on to you. So an example of this is against Illinois is they have a wide side of the field, strong formation, and they have the slot linebacker that's dropping down a little bit too early in the snap count. Altmaier picks him up as a blitz scenario. On that same side, you have a high safety and high corner who look like they're in basic man-to-man match concepts playing at 10 yards. So, this is similar to what we broke out in Iowa in 2024. Altmaier, it's almost like they're baiting Altmaier to see this blitz and say, please go to this out route. You really want to go this out route. At the snap, the outside corner bails down to the out route. Altmaier, sees it, luckily doesn't get the ball, it doesn't get picked, but then takes a sack off the blitzing linebacker. And I see this a lot with how they play it. You can tell that in their basic zone sets, when they're not sending pressure, they're very much trying to give you a pretty picture and then change it just ever so slightly. Another aspect of them is their too high safety look. They almost strictly play too high, but they buzz a ton. So what buzzing means is that safeties will come down and play a middle of the field route at 10 to 7 yards. And what a 4 high look defense is if you're not in cover 4 and you're in some aspect of cover 3, that means one of the 2 safeties or 2 corners is going to come down and play an intermediate zone coverage. And that is really where D coordinators are trying to to get your eyes is we're going to give you a 4-high look, and you're not going to know which one of these guys is coming down. And that's the confusing aspect of this. A perfect example of it is Illinois has a 3 wide receiver set to the right. At the snap, they run like some kind of like mock play action. At the snap, you think that the slot corner is going to get eaten up by the inside curl. But as the play starts, the play side safety buzzes down to take that curl and allows the slot corner to widen faster than Altmaier expects. And Altmaier gets lucky, he doesn't throw a pick. The final aspect, and this is something they actually didn't run a lot last year. This is something I think they added to their book in the offseason, is their 6-man pressure look. So this was very common from Tony White, Nebraska. It's been very common within the NFL for a number of years. But the advantage of it is you have 6 linemen or 6 players lined up across the line. Usually it's a double mug look where you'll have 2 linebackers on the interior. They have, like Kyle mentioned, they have some of the hybrid DM players that can drop in the zone on the outside. Most of the time, they're not going to bring 6. But what it's forcing the O-line to do is either we're going to have to keep guys in for protection. So you can force the offense into wasting pass pro players where you can have a tight end check in to stay in, you can have a running back check in to stay in, and then they'll only usually rush for post snap. The other aspect is when you see a 6 front pressure and you don't check into pass protection, usually that means you're going to leave an edge player who's what you would call a small. There's big on big, small on small. You usually want to block the bigs, let the small come through. If you drop 2 of the guys and you only rush 4, some of the time they will not account for the edge pressure, and you'll get a free edge rusher after only dropping 4. And that's really the main advantage.
The goal. Yeah.
The goal of it is to create edge pressure off of a 4-man drop. When I was going to see this, my call would be how do you attack this, and how I think we'll attack this is because they're playing so many guys tight to the line, you really want to use your running back with speed routes to the edge. If you can have their edge defenders, who you talk about, these hybrid, most of them are not great movers to the edge. So if you can attack them with pace to the edge, run verticals on the outside to account for those outside zone defenders, you can get your running back isolated with speed to the edge. And I think that's really your only option because you don't want to throw over the middle. You saw Altmaier think he's looking at press 6-man blitz man all the time. His eyes are in the wrong spot over and over again. But I think I'll break into this a little bit later, but I think where you're going to want to attack with this disjointed off coverage, hyper aggression on the front end is you want to use a fair amount of RPO, but you really want to use running backs and tight ends to attack this zone. In man-to-man concepts, the easiest guys to guard in man-to-man are running backs and tight ends. And zone concepts, the hardest guys to account for are running backs and tight ends. Yeah. I think what we didn't see against Iowa State was enough utilization on over the middle, small, short curls to tight ends and arrow routes and various leak outs and delays to both tight ends and running backs. I think you really need to utilize the full scope of delays, arrows, drags, and all of that within your tight end and running back room. I think that's your way out.
Yeah, and I think it's a great breakdown. It's focusing on how multiple they can be with zone concepts. It's not unique to them, but they do a great job of it, and they show a lot of different aspects of it. But that only is allowed is if you can hold up with 4 or 5 or 6 against heavy sets up front. And that's what they've been able to do. If we can run the ball, you don't get in 3rd and long. If you can run the ball, they have to show more aggressive sets and roll before pre-snap. You can't roll back. You can't show someone in the box and then cover, have a 4-man match or a cover 4. So it all comes down to every coordinator, they do the best job playing those games. And that's why they're so effective given their personnel and how they have done. But all those games end if we put 2 tight ends in the field and run the ball for 6 yards to carry. Everything changes a lot faster because it simplifies how you can call a game as a coordinator. You're not feeling confident dropping 2 high safeties. You're not feeling confident having these games where you're playing Altmaier on a 2nd and 7 and making him, make bad decisions. Why are you drop backing on a 2nd and 7? And so it all comes down to the strength of this team of Iowa. Can you put yourself in consistent good position over and over? And obviously this offensive line running attack has been very successful so far. You obviously murder UMass. Those 2 games don't matter, but Second half against Iowa State, you kind of plugged away. You chugged away in the running game. Against Rutgers, you had them selling out to stop your run game. And that's the only way they could stop it for less than 10 every single time. That will be where this lives. Shockingly, the Iowa guy says the Iowa run game was going to decide this game. But even more so that these guys are so tactical and so multiple that if you do get in third and long situations, they get off the field a lot. And they get 3 and outs, and then they go 7-play drives. And so even more how critical it is for us to establish the run in this game, to be patient with it, and to use Gronowski consistently, but as the strengths of our teams as well. You're not doing something you're bad at. And so I think that's where this entire game comes down to. We know that the offense on their side is going to be top 10 in efficiency-wise in the country. Incredible personnel, great scheme. Can you hold the ball? Can you pick up first downs? Can you start the game up 7-0 where you let your team settle?
You put them on the back foot finally.
And I think I mentioned this a few times, but this is Kinnick's biggest game since 2021 Penn State. We know how that went. We had another opportunity against Michigan in 2022 where you had McCarthy at home in his first road start. I think they ended up going on and losing in the semifinals that year. It was an incredible roster for Michigan, but they jumped you right away. They were up 14-rip before the game even got started. It was an 11 a.m. kick. The entire stadium is going to be covered in oil to start that game. Iowa fans, you're not bringing your kids to this one. You're bringing your buddy. You're spending $350 to sit 50-yard line, 20 rows up. Expensive tickets. This is the environment that fans have been waiting for a few years. You didn't have one of these games last year. Washington was your closest one. You didn't have this game in 2023. Minnesota at home with a 3-win team. That was your closest one other than Iowa State in 2024. This is like why we are Kirk stands. Yes, we're mid-tier. Yes, we're not going to go and win a national title. We're not going to win the Big Ten. But you drag teams, great teams, into these close games at home, and you have a chance to upset them. That hasn't been the case for this program since 2021. You've been blown out for mistakes you made in the Big Ten title games or at home to Michigan, turning the ball over, Ohio State on the road a few times. This feels like Iowa's best opportunity to re-enter the national stage. Indiana could not be more of a golden child to every single writer, to every single sports talk radio host that covers college football. And they have to go into Kinnick in an environment where everyone can go, oh yeah. When these guys play at home, they get this crowd, the scene that's going to be of, a perfect fall day. I just feel like we have to be aggressive on offense or special teams in some sort of trick play or some sort of opportunity where you can spark this crowd, because if you don't spark it and it kind of plays this like conversion style for Indiana, you're going to have a really hard time winning this game. But if you can light it up where 1st and 10 are allowed for the entire game, or at least for most of the first half and then late in the fourth quarter because the crowd's going to be gassed by third quarter, that's where this game lives, is that
seizing opportunity early.
Seize opportunity, fake something on special teams. I think Gronowski, the way Gronowski's run game in short yards just looked, your coordinators are going, if it's 5 wide, get ready for QB power. If it's a heavy set and shotgun, get ready for QB power. The QB power jump pass Tebow throw would be perfect in this game. First and 10, you feel like you got him, you want to make a play, that is going to be your opportunity. You have like your first 3rd and short, like get aggressive. Like you're going to have to score 24 points to win this game most likely, maybe more. So try to throw a haymaker early on offense. Defense, I think you try to stay alive, but I think offense, call something that just ignites this crowd and gets Kinnick rolling to a point of let's throw some disbelief in this program. Cignetti's talking the way to his players that there is no doubt of what they're doing 24/7. Let the crowd create some doubt.
I want to add one more thing just to, break out how we're going to attack this Indiana defense. So you broke out their traditional base set is 4 down linemen. How I expect them to answer is likely some version of a 5 front, because Iowa is just does an exceptionally good job of attacking C gap, either with front end, outside zone, or that backside cut C we've talked about, a ton. So what you're going to want to do on Indiana's front is likely add a 5th body to that front line. What that's going to open the door to is now, since you're wasting bodies outside the tackles on the edge, is the counter power and trap game is going to become a larger part of this game than it has in the past, because you are able to push out and waste bodies to the edge. On the flip side of that, when they do stay in their forefront, these guys do not have exceptionally good tackling bodies at the cornerback position and at safety position. I think Farrell's a decent tackler, but really Pons, I think, is like a 5'9", 180-pound guy at corner. Exceptionally talented and
gifted kid. Yeah.
Gifted in pass defense, like one of the top corners in the country. But at that slight size, you're really going to want to try and isolate him against running backs and try and get him carried for 3 or 4 yards. So when you go to that forefront, you want to attack the edges. What you're going to see is the lesser special of reducing your sets, cracking up to those safeties and linebackers, and leaving your running backs one-on-one with the edge corners. And those are really going to be your 2 aspects of attack against those various fronts. I'm interested to see how our play action pass works against these very high safeties. So what you're going to want to do is what we talked about with the Rutgers game is these 3-man concepts where you have a runoff route with your post route, which is truly going to be a runoff route, but then you're going to have that intermediate crosser. I have a feeling that they're going to do a great job with those corners of playing off and preventing those 2 deep routes. Where I think you're going to have a ton of success is in your checkdowns. So this is a very common thing within the NFL is you have deep play action sets where guys will bail out post realization that you have play action, and then you have a lot of checkdowns to RBs for 6 yards. I think this needs to be something that's hammered home in the prep is we're likely not going to get the look we want in these play actions. Be very aware of where your checkdown is and hit it as fast as possible, and that's going to be how we action it. And that's really the aspect of playing a 4-high group is you need to take your checkdowns. You need to know where your second reads are. This is going to be an evolution where we get to see, is Gronowski starting to pick up the scheme? Is he knowing where his outlets are? And it's going to be how you move the ball, over and over.
Yeah. I think it just comes down to their 3 front of Landino, Tucker, and Kamara. If those guys can stiffen up and hold us for 2 yards to carry in heavy sets against 2 tight ends, and we can't establish a run at all, this game could get away from us. And it obviously, like, that's not a hot take about football. If you can't run the ball for more than 2 yards, you turn into the Illinois Indiana game quickly. But
it's what they're forcing you to do.
The whole scope of it, they're resting their run defense on their box defenders. They really don't build their secondary and their scheme to have those guys be inserted like Iowa State. Iowa State, we talk about them being built beefy. These guys are meant for coverage, as you mentioned. So I think it'd be interesting too. It's like, how did Cignetti build this defense? That'll be the takeaway. You look at why it was a decent performer at Maryland. It wasn't a guy that was like coveted in the transfer portal. He had like a good season. It wasn't like all Big Ten there, and he's been productive. Landino was a low 80 overall, 3-star and 247, I want to say, and is like pretty young in the program. Tucker was a JMU guy that came over with him. Obviously, Kamara is like all Big Ten. But it's like, how did you build?
Well, I think the biggest one is, those guys all like when you see them make plays and then you see them afterwards, it's like, how?
No, I think it's not how, because I think they are built well.
But like, how did they're not big guys. Like Landino's not a big guy.
No, he's like
6'2",
285.
Yeah, but he's 6'2".
Like Tucker looks apart, and Kamara. 100.
Yeah, but
Kamara's built like a fire hydrant. Like
But it's like, I think the biggest one for me is Isaiah Jones. Like truly nothing exceptional about him when it comes to,
when you just look at him.
When you look at him.
But
he makes play after play. And I think they have such a commitment and aggression. They're very much an Iowa State front 6 where they do not have a lot of responsibility in the passing game, and they play exceptionally fast and know the responsibilities well. And because this front 4 is not, they don't really have the bendy pass rusher similar to Iowa State. So you build into what is Iowa going to do against that. You're likely going to feel pretty good with booting Gronowski, with getting Gronowski in deep play action sets, because even if you get a Landino or Tucker through, Gronowski's going to be able to escape that guy.
Yeah, you still want to be Jones.
I think you're going to have a scenario where it's going to be kind of similar to Iowa State, where you're going to have play action and boot sets where Gronowski's looking out of the full coverage, and he's just going to have to go. I think, again, we're looking at another 12 to 16 run game, and a lot of it's going to be off schedule in those passing attempt, those play action passing attempts.
Yeah,
you got to learn how to play a lot of small games where, okay, our first read's not there. I'm running here. I can have my running back make a late move where I can find him after the play set. It's going to have to be a lot of gamesmanship in the post play action universe.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to you're playing Indiana, Penn State, and Oregon, USC, and Nebraska, and probably going to be underdogs in all games. And like the run game in all those, I think USC and Nebraska, you should expect to run the football for like 120 yards. But against Indiana, Oregon, and Penn State, like, what's that really going to look like? You get them at home. You get them in environments. That always helps the O-line. But I think it also comes down to, like we mentioned, the front end. Gronowski is the playmaker on this team. We're going to go where Gronowski takes us on, off-schedule plays and boot passes and deep balls. Like, he is our Caleb Johnson this year. He is the guy that can turn a tide of a game and like almost turn it against Iowa State in some situations. Like, I think we're going to go, obviously the run game is going to have its moment, but his off-schedule plays are going to be very critical.
I do think you actually will see a bit of a reversion to more shotgun sets against that forefront. I feel like most coordinators, when they play 4 high looks against 4 fronts that don't move well, you just want to create space to be able to isolate those DNs. And Gronowski against those DNs, you're going to feel pretty good about.
Yeah, I would push back that's what they want to run.
That's what they want to run.
They want you to run interior out of shotgun.
No, but I'm saying more so that you're going to run play action sweeps where you're going to run a PA where you're going to have tight ends crossing. And he's going to be
what we saw against Rutgers on the almost touchdown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a larger part that we anticipate. Is you're going to see, because it's so much too high, you're not going to really have the advantage of deep passing out of under center. Mm-hmm. You're going to want to lighten up and play a little bit more out of shotgun.
Yeah. I think the last kid we haven't mentioned yet is Fisher. But like this entire scheme with the bodies they play interiorly with the 3 essentially D tackles and Kamara, it frees him up. And they play him so close to the line, right behind those guys. He clearly is the tackler of the team and like was all Big Ten last year. So
I want to get a prediction.
Yeah, you can go first.
I will go 34-20, Indiana. I think that their level of offense, I don't know if their run game is going to be dominant against us. I think we're going to have more success there than some people would anticipate. But I think within the passing department, we're not going to be able to confuse them with alignment, which then you just have really talented receivers with a really talented QB going against a no pass rush, relatively weaker cornerback room. Mm-hmm. And that's going to lead to a lot of chunk plays and a lot of just easy execution.
Yeah.
On the defense, and then I think that we're going to have some success on the offensive side of the ball. I just don't see. They've done such a good job of stopping the run. I don't think that we're going to be that next tier level of O-line play, even though that's our strength of our team. I don't think we're going to push enough buttons in the run game to be consistent enough to, run play action and boot pass. I think we're going to be in a lot of 2nd and 7 trying to run our play action boot pass, and it's just not going to look right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's closer, and then they just given the, like I've said it 10 times, I think Kinnick keeps us close in the first half. I think the opportunity to play in front of your crowd in this type of environment will keep it close, but I'm going to go low scoring. I think it's going to be like 21-13. 2-score lead, 2-score losses, it's a title contender winning team. If you're playing at Kinnick against an Iowa team and beat them by 2 scores, I'm not going to do that. But I think they cover. 7.5. It's just, I envision that we'll be in 3rd and 7 more than we want to be. And I think they'll be on, it's just the efficiency of both sides. I think we're going to be on the back foot a little bit more. And this is a team this is classic Kirk Ferentz teams, but like even more this year, 3rd and 7 is just not something we're comfortable at. And then a team that's so multiple and so confusing and so aggressive at points. Like I envision maybe a turnover in the second half that kind of flips the tide, and then Indiana can take control. But I think we do hang around for a little bit.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.